In Clause 18, Amendment 20, Lord Moylan.
My Lords, I hope noble Lords will agree that in my speeches so far this evening I've been as brief as possible. This amendment is of some technicality, and it is also legally quite complex, and I am not myself being a lawyer. I hope that I can get it right and explain it correctly in as brief a compass as possible, but if I go on a little bit longer than I have otherwise, I hope noble Lords will indulge me. I want to start at some distance from the bill. I want to start with European Union procurement law, to which we were subject for so many years. And anybody involved in local government or in any departmental procurement will remember that that obliged us to put out to tender any contracts that were above a certain threshold. And we would have to advertise them. We would go through what was known as the OJU process. The question arose at that time in European law, what was the situation of a public authority which had set up its own company? Could it award work to a company which was its own subsidiary without going out to tender? And this case went to the European Court of Justice, and the name of the case was Tekal. It went to the European Court of Justice, and the European Court of Justice determined that in certain circumstances, especially where the subsidiary was doing substantially most of its work for the public authority, that contracts could be awarded to it without the need for any tendering. So you have a public authority, it has a subsidiary, the subsidiary does most of its work for that public authority, and contracts can be awarded without going out to tender, the Tekal exemption. Of course, we left the European Union, and in the course of time, we replaced that procurement legislation with our own Procurement Act, seen, if I may say so ably through the House by my noble friend, Lady Neville Rofe. But that procurement legislation carried forward the provisions of the Tekal exemption. I don't know if it's still called Tekal, but I'm going to call it Tekal because everybody in the procurement universe does still. It carried forward the Tekal exemption so that the situation I described still pertains in UK law. Now, the bill in front of us offers to local transport authorities three ways of carrying forward the provision of bus services. The provision of bus they have to keep talking. The provision of bus services. Sorry? Yeah. The provision of bus services. One of them is through an enhanced bus partnership, one of them is through the franchising route, and one of them is through establishing their own bus company subsidiary. Now, it is manifest to me, even as a non-lawyer, that a bus company that was established and owned by a local transport authority, which inevitably would provide all of its services, practically all of its services, to that local transport authority, would qualify for the Tekal exemption. That is, work could be given to it without going out to tender. So I'm going to park that for a moment. Let us now travel to a different part of the bill. In a different part of the bill relating to the franchising route, permission is given to local transport authorities to make initially what is called a direct award. That is, to give to a local, to the incumbent bus company, the existing incumbent bus company, to give it the contract to carry out the franchised service without going out to tender. This provision would only apply for a limited period, and one understands the government's thinking in this, which is, of course, that if you're going to adopt a franchise model and you have only one bus company operating, and it is operating, then they are perhaps, you should be able to give it to them for the sake of continuity and smooth operation, and then develop the market later so that when you next go arrange your franchising, there is a market into which you can tender. So the direct award route is not in itself objectionable. I'm not saying anything in this is objectionable. What I want to come to is the interaction of the two, because the anxiety is that the legislation is so drafted, not deliberately, I imagine, well, I'll come to that, but is so drafted that it may be possible for a local authority, on the one hand, to set up to use the route of setting up a public company, its own subsidiary bus company, a so-called LabCo, it seems to be the terminology that's going round. I depreciate it as much as I think the minister does from the shaking of his head. That it set up its own subsidiary, but then use the direct award mechanism to give all of that, the whole contract, to its own subsidiary immediately and without any tendering. Now, what I would like to, well, it's not what I'd like to hear the minister say. I think the minister can respond to what I have said by saying one of three things. Fortunately, for the minister, I have given him my own inadequate explanation of this case in advance, so he's had some time to think about it. He can say one of three things. He can say, I've got the law wrong. And he, with the benefit of the government legal service behind him, and I with my poor resources, that may be the answer. And he will be able to explain why I've got the law wrong, and he'll be able to put the House right as to what the legal position is. That's one thing. He could say that the noble Lord, myself, has alighted upon a loophole and a weakness in the legislation which should be addressed, and that he is going to take steps to address it, and that my amendment is therefore unnecessary, and between now and third reading something will be done. Or he could say words to the effect that I've got the law right, the loophole exists, and he's going to do nothing at all about it. Now, in the last case, I give notice, I suspect I would want to test the opinion of the House. But in the first two cases, of course, if I was corrected on the law, or if the noble Lord, the Minister, said that he agreed with me on the law and was going to do something about it, then I would, of course, expect to withdraw my amendment. So I'd be very interested to hear what noble Lords have to say about this exciting argument that could, for all I know, provoke widespread debate in the House. But I'm particularly interested to know what the noble Lord, the Minister, has to say when he comes to reply.